So hello to everyone and welcome to the SEtalks number 4. At least in Serbia today is a great weather, so if you are now following us and not enjoying outside, that means that you are very interested in this topic. So thank you for being with us today. My name is Snežana Andrić and I want to welcome you on behalf of Young Ambassadors from Niš in Serbia. So these SEtalks webinars are part of the project that we are doing together with our partners from Social Entrepreneurship Observatory from North Macedonia, thanks to the support of a Swedish Institute and Lund University. So every Thursday we are speaking about different parts of social entrepreneurship and social economy field. So today, as you know, we will speak about the social entrepreneurship ecosystem, its development, importance, and try to bring it closer to the new and upcoming entrepreneurs. Now I'm giving the floor to my colleague Stefan from Social Entrepreneurship Observatory to say hello as well.
Hi everyone, it's great to see you here and on this nice weather to see you interested in this webinar. You can also follow and share this webinar on Facebook because we are going live. It's good to know that. Yes, I'm Stefan Cevaliev. I'm the executive director from the Social Entrepreneurship Observatory based in Skopje. And yeah, I would not take a lot of time introducing myself and the observatory because this is already a practice. This is our 4th webinar, 4th Thursday. We have a lot more, so we'll get to know each other through the webinar, right? Thank you.
And as I mentioned before, our today's topic is development of social entrepreneurship ecosystem, and we are having great speakers from 3 countries today who will share their knowledge and experience in this topic. So today with us we have Marie Logrian, senior lecturer from Lund University in Sweden, Neven Marinovic, director of Smart Collective and president of Euclid Network from Serbia, and Alexandra Iloska, researcher at the Association for Research, Communication and Development Public from North Macedonia. So welcome to all of you and thank you very much for being with us today and for sharing your experience and your knowledge with our audience here on Zoom and also on Facebook pages. And at the beginning, maybe we can start with a presentation, a short presentation about our speakers, since we have here the participants who are listening from the whole region and from the whole Europe. So maybe we can present them more about the work that you are doing in this field. So Marie, maybe we can start with you and to hear your introduction about your work and also the Lund University. So please, you can start.
Thank you. Well, I'm a senior lecturer at the Stenke Johnson Center for Entrepreneurship at Lund University, and we are doing research and also educations within entrepreneurship. I've also been involved in science parks and incubators and the ecosystem as such, research-wise, and also have some educations in that field. Well, in addition, I was the co-founder of the Stenke Johnson Center for Entrepreneurship, and I have been its director for, well, up until 2018, I think. Now I'm just a lecturer. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mari, very much for being with us today. So, Neven, we can go to you and hear more about your work and the work of Smart Collective. We had on the first SEtalks your colleague Ivana, but of course to hear from your perspective, the Smart Collective work and also the Euclid Net.
Okay, thank you, Snežana. Thanks for the invitation. I hope we'll be able to soon enough have also physical meetings so that we can even interact more with people. So Smart Collective is an organization based in Belgrade, and we provide various types of support to social businesses or businesses with impact. from funding to technical support to access to market, matching them with companies from the, let's say, so-called the classic private sector, so they can become part of the supply chain, and of course promotion and visibility. We have also launched last year the first impact fund in the country, where we provide favorable or soft financial instruments, so zero interest loans to social businesses in the country, together with the investment readiness program, where we provide them capacity building and technical support, and try to match them also with other potential funders and investors. Apart from that, we also manage something called Responsible Business Forum, which is a network of, let's say, 30-something companies, mainly big companies, where we also try to promote the concept of how to say, instigating or incorporating sustainability into everyday business practices. And of course, we heavily misuse this network to try to pitch to them various ideas about cooperation with social enterprises and ways of them to support social businesses, because, as I said, sometimes it's the access to market is much more valuable than providing some kind of grant or other financial instrument or a loan. So yes, I would stop here.
Okay, thank you very much. And Alexandra, to hear more about the association public, we really have a great cooperation with your association through the DSS network, and we know a lot about your work, but to hear from your perspective, what are you working now and usually in your project?
Thank you very much, Snezhana and Stefan, for the invitation. As an organization, we are doing actually quite a lot in the field of the social enterprises, starting from running our own social enterprise, the street paper face-to-face, that actually enables us to learn from the practice and from that experience that we gathered through the street paper face-to-face and our direct work with the most deprived persons that live in North Macedonia, actually enables us to shape and to map what are the existing gaps in the ecosystem for social enterprises. And we, as an organization and as a practitioners as well, we identified that we don't have a good and well-developed ecosystem for social enterprises. So as an organization, we initiated and we coordinated the development of the first national strategy for social enterprises that hopefully will be adopted by mid-July. Also, very similarly as Smart Collective, we, through the companies Doing Good Forum that we are organizing on a biannual basis, we try to encourage and partnerships and cooperation between social enterprises and the traditional business sector as a way to ensure sustainability of social enterprises. Moreover, we also initiated in 2018 the first national declaration of social enterprises, where a lot of stakeholders, more than 45 stakeholders, coming from various, from all sectors, public, private, and the third sector, committed themselves to promote and to work together towards the development of the ecosystem of social enterprises, but also promoting the values of social enterprises. And following the needs, as I said, mostly as practitioners, we try to follow and provide answer to the identified gaps. We initiated and established the first national network of social enterprises in North Macedonia. So shortly, that is the work that we are doing currently.
Thank you very much, and we will have enough time to speak about all these initiatives later. And thank you once again to all of you. And before we start with the discussion, just to invite everyone who are following us here on Zoom or on Facebook pages, you can write your questions during the whole discussion or in comments on Facebook. And after the discussion, all the speakers will answer your questions. So please feel free to ask everything.
Yeah, great. Basically, it's great that you mentioned that, because it is good to know that along the whole webinar you can ask anything you want, and you already heard our speakers, their experience, what they do. So feel free to ask them anything. Okay, guys, now let's talk social entrepreneurship. Thank you for having the time to be here, and we will start here with Alexandra. Alexandra, because now you were talking about what the public has done and what the organization has done. Can you just explain in short, what are the parts that consist the social entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Yes, I have to unmute myself. I'm always forgetting. Well, while we were working on the strategy, we actually identified, and we can all agree that actually the ecosystem of social enterprises are very complex, and they are consistent of various components that actually are mutually very dependent, and if one of the components is missing, then the entire ecosystem can be non-functional. When it comes to the components of the ecosystem for social enterprises, it's not something that we made up. It's something that exists as a concept, and it has been developed and promoted by the European Commission. That is actually the concept that we also adopt, and that we try to integrate and fully integrate it into the work and the context that exists in our country. So when it comes to the ecosystem, the most important, especially for the countries where the ecosystem is very fragmented, is something that we call creating a culture for social entrepreneurship. And when we say a culture for social entrepreneurship, we first and primarily mean to the political and legal recognition of social enterprises. And without this, actually, we notice that social enterprises cannot flourish and cannot realize their full potential. Then, of course, the education of social enterprises. And when we refer to education, we have noticed that in our context, it's necessary to integrate the social enterprises as a concept in all levels of education in order to enable and support new generations that are more sensible for the social issues and that are more willing to contribute. And that is not something that you can bring up in a higher education. It's something that you have to nurture through the entire education in order to have a long-term effect. And of course, here the most important is the research on social enterprises, because we need, in order to be able to create better policies, better programs, and to see what's happening in the entire ecosystem, we need to know what as a social enterprise do we have. And social enterprises are actually different in all countries. It's not something that we can just copy paste and integrate it in our context. We are different. Every country is different. Every context is different, and we need to know what do we have as a practice. And actually the operational definition that has been developed by the European Commission. It's a very useful tool that enables us as actors in the ecosystem to better identify and map the different models of social enterprises in the country. And at the end, of course, it's the social recognition of social enterprises and the value that they deliver in the society, and that this is can only be achieved if we continuously measure and manage the impact that social enterprises are delivering. Then, of course, when we go on the other side of on the other group of components, we have the development of market for social enterprises. And here we have the public sector through the public contracts and the promotion of social procurement. Then we have the private sector, which should be enabled and encouraged to establish the various strategic partnerships and with the social enterprises, but also they should be encouraged to integrate social enterprises in their value chains. And then at the end, of course, the most important are also important the citizens themselves, who should be encouraged and be more informed about their buying decisions. Then we come to the third set of components, and those are the actors in the ecosystem. And here we have the networks and the mechanisms for mutual cooperation between social enterprises. And from our experience that we have seen in our country, this actually the networks and the mutual cooperation between social enterprises has proven to be one of the very effective and positive mechanisms that leads to a long-term sustainability of social enterprises. And then, of course, are all the actors in the ecosystem for social enterprises, who should be enabled to understand the different models of social enterprises in that exist in a specific context, and the different legal frameworks that enable the establishment and the development of social enterprises, and based on that insight to develop different programs and support for based on the real needs of social enterprises. And then at the end, we have the most important part of the ecosystem, which is missing, unfortunately, still in Macedonia, is then those are the social finance instruments that again have to be developed in accordance with the needs, with the real needs and the real capacities of social enterprises.
Thank you, Alexandra. Wow. It seems like a really complicated system, right? Of course, social entrepreneurship is a transversal topic. It's an intersectoral topic which bridges across dimensions and across sectors. So it should be complicated, right? But once set up, it should be conducive for social enterprises. And of course, we should promote it and then upgrade every time that there is a new innovation or new approach to the ecosystem. Thank you for that, and thank you for that elaborate, basically the elaborate explanation about the parts of the social entrepreneurship ecosystem. It's great for those who are seeing that social entrepreneurship is not only something that is imagined 30 years ago, but something that is a complicated field which can be basically can provide very advantages to our society and communities. Thank you, Alexandra, again. But in order to build this ecosystem, Marie, how to build strong social entrepreneurship ecosystem which will foster social innovation and enterprises' growth. Can you tell us more about that?
Wow, here comes the recipe, right?
Yeah.
It's not simple, of course, and I'm not sure that you actually can build I mean, there's not one way, one size fits all in this, as you also said, Alexandra. It depends a lot about context, and it depends on a lot of different things. And to be honest, I don't think that Sweden has a very elaborate ecosystem when it comes to social entrepreneurship. I think we have quite an elaborate ecosystem when it comes to entrepreneurship in general. And I also think that we tend to push also the social ventures into that system. And that is because most of our social ventures are actually ventures. So they do social things, so things that are good for social purposes, but they also do it with a business model that actually brings in funding or brings in profits in order to do more good in the end. So I think we have more of a philosophy in Sweden that social ventures are ventures, but they do social good things. And I think that has a history with it, because normally in Sweden, or we have a history that we pay a lot of taxes, and so the state should be the ones that take care of everyone. So people get we have social security system, we have free healthcare, we have all of these things, free schooling, for instance. So all of these things are free, but we pay taxes. So that's why we do not really have that kind of ecosystem for social businesses or for social enterprise. But however, lately that has changed in some way, because the public sector cannot really do all the things that they don't manage to do all the things that are needed. So and then suddenly we get these social entrepreneurs also in the system. And of course, they are not just popping up everywhere. There are calls from the Swedish Agency for Innovation, for instance, for more social innovations. And there are also funding from different regional agencies for more social entrepreneurship to take place. And we have, as far as I know, one incubator or accelerator. It is an accelerator in the region, but there's only one accelerator in the region that deals with social enterprise and social ventures. But again, it is sort of the feeling is that there should be some sort of profit involved. So there should be some way of making money. It doesn't have to be that they sell stuff, but some way they need to make money in the end for them to be sustainable as businesses, but also to make socially good things. So and another thing with the Swedish system, I think that we tend to talk about social issues and environmental issues in the same sentence, so to say. So it's we normally talk about people, planet, and profit. And that is the triple bottom line, and we try to build that together and talk about it all for both for new ventures, but also for existing ventures. In a way, we're trying to transform existing ventures to do good, both for the environment and socially. So, yeah. So the ecosystem that we have, which of course consists of incubators and accelerators and funding from national agencies, funding from regional agencies, and also there's business angels involved in what we call social ventures. So it is basically the same as an ordinary ecosystem, I would say. So sorry, no really good recipe from here.
Yeah, there's no good recipe anywhere, basically, because it's a matter of context. It's a matter of state of affairs, state of play in the countries, and depending on the policies that the current governments have, because the political will depends on the politicians that are ruling with the country, let's say like that. But also, Alexandra also mentioned that not only we do not need only political will, but we need legal recognition as well, because many institutions do not recognize social enterprises because they are not legally recognized, or they do not have a certain legal entity registered in order to provide funds. So they're basically swimming like in the gray area at the moment. Neven, can I ask you, why is it important for social entrepreneurship to know the ecosystem and how to learn it?
Well, I think, if we, sometimes we use the word ecosystem without actually, thinking where it comes from. And, and I guess, if we would be thinking more about that, then maybe it would be easier for us also to understand what do we need to do to build our ecosystem and how to connect within it. And basically, it's a community of living organisms and nature and non-living organisms that keeps us interacting with each other, and that provides food and that provides shelter and that are food to some other. So I think having said that, I think for social businesses like any other business or any other entity, it's extremely important to understand that ecosystem, especially given the fact that the ecosystem for social enterprises, unlike ecosystems for some other more established forms, either of business or other forms of work, is much less established. It's much less known. So it needs to put it needs to be nurtured, I would say, more carefully. Having said that, I think the how should they understand that ecosystem? I think that's partly easy, partly probably difficult, but looking at what's their value chain, what's their supply chain, looking at where their customers are, looking at where their opportunities for funding are at the end of the day, and where they can get additional support. So going both internally and externally, seeing where they lack some knowledge, or they lack some people, or they lack some funding, or different things. Because if you ask majority of social enterprises, the only thing they would say they lack is money. But once start digging, you will see that there is maybe they're lacking a sales strategy, or they're lacking good distribution, and that money of course should come, but not as a first thing, and not something that should solve problems. And I think for social enterprises it's even more difficult, and this is to get back to your question, why is it important, or even more important for them to understand their system? Because if you're a traditional business, you can probably learn from let's say learn from your peers. There is a lot of experience around. There is a lot of other entrepreneurs. There is a lot of agencies. There is a lot of even schools, teaching you how to run your business. So there is a lot of knowledge laying around and a lot of resources that you can tap into. If you're a social, you can go to a bank, you can, ask for a loan for your business, or, you can talk to some other as Marie said, to ask for public funding, which is directed to, I don't know, business development services and things like this. When it comes to so as a classical business, you're actually able to focus on your business development, business growth, and customer base, and your service or a product, and on your core business functionality. As a social business, for you, it's not that easy. So this is why you need to focus also on your ecosystem and build much stronger connections within your ecosystem, because probably there would only be a handful of financial institutions providing loans for social business. So if you're looking for funding, you really should know your ecosystem, and you really should know where you can actually look for funding. When when you're trying to, let's say, enter a supply chain of a big company, you really should know which companies are having various programs or support or incentive mechanisms to support social businesses, or you really need to understand if there is any public procurement policies that to support, or you need to be very creative and saying, okay, if my social business provides positive social impact or employs various vulnerable groups, maybe I can, benefit from specific programs which are not intended to social businesses as such, but are supporting, let's say, employment of disabled people or employment of some minority people. So having said that, if you really need to, to grow your business as a social entrepreneur, you must be much more rooted, that is at least from my opinion, into your ecosystem, and be much more connected, and try to get much more benefit from and support from the ecosystem than as a classical entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, this is the only way you can both survive and strive and build your business. So this is why I think the importance of ecosystem for social businesses is probably even higher and much more relevant than to if you're trying to build a classical business.
Thank you, Neven. I think that this first round of questions basically concluded that the most specific word is context, right? Because it's a matter of context in the countries, it's a matter of social entrepreneurs, where they're headed and where they're focused, and it's a matter of context in relation to social enterprises, because some of them need funding, some of them human resources, some of them need technology to achieve their goal, right? So I think that we should mention also that social entrepreneurs should probably, before starting a social enterprise or going ahead with their idea, to basically find out what their context lies in terms of their idea and their business plan, and how they are going to try to develop it and to achieve it before jumping over the line and doing that. But they can also learn with practice, of course, and networking and partnerships and so on and so forth. Thank you all. And now, Snezana, please continue.
No, I think that maybe we can stay a little bit more with Neven, because you were speaking about all this situation and how it is important to understand the whole ecosystem. But maybe can you present us more about the current situation in Serbia? So the development of the ecosystem and what is the Smart Collective doing in this field?
Yeah, sure. I think definitely the scarcer the resources, overall resources, and the overall economic development in the country, probably it would reflect the ecosystem of social businesses and social entrepreneurship. So I would say the situation in Serbia is not great. This is, we're not speaking about a very developed ecosystem, but also if you want to look at it from a more positive end, if we look 10 years, in the past, we see that there is now many different things happening, that were completely non-existent a few years ago. So what I would say, maybe I can start with some probably gaps in the ecosystem and some negatives, so that we can finish on the positive side. I think one of the big problems is, of course, the lack of support and any kind of strategic commitment from the public sector. And I think this is one of the key issues why we cannot move forward, we cannot move faster. I'm not speaking about the law on social enterprises, because even if the state they announced the law many times, but even if the law is there, this would not solve the situation. I'm speaking about whether the state and the public sector want to systematically support the development of business with positive social impact or not. Is it something they're interested in or not? Do they see that as a potential way of also solving some of the issues they're working on, like inclusion, like employment of various vulnerable groups, like contribution to the fighting the let's say environmental degradation and many other things. Currently, obviously they don't see it, and they don't understand this concept, and it's too it's complicated or whatever. So there is no incentives, there is no strategy, there is no public procurement, there is no funding from any kind of regional, local, or any other level. So no kind of support and no recognition. So because we sometimes say, even if you're not supporting, you can at least praise the ones who are already doing things, regardless of the circumstances that they work in, and regardless of the lack of the support. But that would also you can help us share some good case studies, some good stories that inspire other people. I think the other thing that is also lacking is the lack of not only social entrepreneurship as such, as a narrow topic, but also the overall lack of sustainability related issues, and especially sustainability with connection with business and management in any level of education in the country. So primary school, secondary school, university, you name it, probably you will be able to become really highly educated without ever running into social enterprise, sustainability, CSR, or any type of these terms, which I think is also then not helping us build future leaders, the people who should inspire and who should be the ones behind various social business ideas and successful enterprises and things like this. So I said these are besides that, of course, there is a lack of financial support. So generally the market is bank dominated. So 92% of all the money coming into the business sector is coming from the banks, which is quite bad. So it's not diverse. So you can only get a loan, and loan will help you, I don't know, buy a new machine, buy a car, but it will not help you grow your business in the long term. And especially there is a lack of adequate funding for social businesses, which would recognize their specificness, which would recognize their fragility, which would recognize that actually they have higher impact maybe somewhere else, not in the pure quantitative financial results and things like this. But things have started to change. So for example, since recently, we now have 2 banks that have some kind of financial instruments which are more tailored to the needs of which are more tailored to the needs of social businesses. We now have several, let's say, intermediate or support organizations such as Smart Collective, which are working on various levels. Some of them, like Social Impact Awards, working on with the startup level. Some like us working on a more, let's say, intermediary or medium developed level of enterprises. You have more and more capacity building programs, from but this movement is mainly driven by the civil society sector, I have to say. And finally, one positive movement is also that the private sector has jumped on the wagon before the public sector. So there is more and more companies which are willing to have some kind of sort of positive discrimination programs where they would on purpose purchase products or services from social businesses as a part of their sustainability strategy, which I think also provides a boost to the social businesses. And obviously, since we're working for, let's say, 10 years in the area, finally now we have some case studies and examples to showcase. So we're not speaking about, why this is good and why you should be doing this, but we can actually showcase a real person, the real impact that her or his enterprises provides. And I think, this now can actually serve as inspiration to others. So I think all of these things, access to funding, access to market, having, good examples that you can showcase. And at the end of the day, mainstreaming social businesses is extremely important for their future success, because it's still very unknown. And I will finish with this. In majority of our countries, even the naming is not very good. Because social kind of sounds like socialism. So people are not sure, is this like this some kind of old socialist enterprises like public loan? This is what you're promoting, come on, and or they're very skeptical because of the transition, very kind of wild east transition that we had in the 90s. So people are very skeptical, like, what do you mean they're making money and doing some, social good at the same time? This is not possible. There must be a scam or something. So I think, we have a long way to go, but I think, given also all the challenges that we're facing, that people are now understanding, especially young people, and expecting that, the role of the business is not anymore, just to make money and the government should deal with other things. I think now people expect and understand much more and much better that things are more fluid, and that the things are more hybrid, so that yes, business should provide some social benefit, and that the business can be at the same time this and that. So I think I'm kind of hopeful that with also new generation and more successful businesses, we'll be able to push things forward.
Thank you, Neven. And yes, now you have opened a lot of topics for the discussion. And yeah, we were speaking in the previous webinars about this all, including the social entrepreneurship in the educational system, to speak more, to encourage young people. And we are definitely all agreed that young people are now more aware about the impact that they can have in their surrounding, in the environmental issues, and how to make a business from this. So this is definitely really important to speak more and to encourage even more young people. And Alexandra, maybe we can continue with you, because yeah, I think that it is the similar situation in all our Western Balkan countries, and maybe you can now present us more how the ecosystem is developing in Macedonia, and are we facing all these positive and negative aspects as well there.
Well, while I was listening to Neven, I was all that at the same time. Oh, it's the same. So there are no huge differences. I guess not only when you compare the Macedonian and the Serbian, but I think from what we have heard through our activities in the region, the situation more or less it's the same in all Western Balkan countries. I will just try to sum up everything what Neven said. We social enterprises in North Macedonia don't have access to finance and financial instruments. They don't have access to markets. When we say about access to markets, we do have a new law on public procurement that actually promotes the concept of social public procurement, but in practice, none of the public institutions has the capacity to implement such procurement. So now, when we have the legal basis for the social procurement, now we need more activities in order to strengthen the capacities of public institutions to implement and to really recognize social enterprises and try to implement the public procurement in a more, let's say, sustainable way. Also, when we speak about the education, we have very limited education about social enterprises. And even though when we were developing the strategy for social enterprises, and when we were speaking with stakeholders, we were also receiving information that even though social entrepreneurship is recognized in the high school education, usually professors don't have the capacity to really provide a quality education. So we need to further build capacities of those educational programs. When we are talking about the education on the high education, We don't have the full department in higher education that is fully devoted on social enterprises or social economy as a whole. Now, since very recently, a Yunus Center in the Faculty of Economy at Skopje was opened, but of course, further capacity building and financing needs to be provided for that center in order to reach its full capacity. Then we have a network on social enterprises, but of course further capacity building of the network needs to be provided, and of course more sustainable finances in order to make its programs and activities more sustainable and with much higher impact. If I try to sum up how the entire ecosystem on social enterprises looks in North Macedonia, I would just have to conclude that it's still fragmented. It's in the very early stages of its development. A lot of actors are missing. But even though there are actors that are existing, a lot of capacity building needs to be done in order to make sure that these actors are fully responding to the needs of the context and to the needs of the social enterprises. I will just bring one example here to bring more clarity. For example, while there are various legal forms that in North Macedonia that enable the operation of social enterprises. But currently, most of the actors are focused on building the capacities only on the entities that are operating as civil society organizations that are implementing or are willing to develop their ecosystem, their economic activities. But the ecosystem we have other legal forms such as the cooperatives, the agricultural cooperatives, the sheltered companies. There are no entities that are providing some services and working with these different legal forms. Hopefully when the strategy when it will be adopted, we can expect a little bit more developed and a little bit more coordinated ecosystem, because we are also what we can see constantly from the practice is that actors are not really cooperating. They don't try to coordinate their work, and we have a lot of work to be done ahead. But on the other hand, we can see a lot of will and many committed actors that are really willing to provide their input and do something to steer the development of the ecosystem. But at the end, what I would say is that the major challenge that we are facing currently is, of course, the lack of sustainable financing, not only for social enterprises, but also for the services and for the activities of all the actors that are operating in the ecosystem.
Yeah, okay, yes, definitely. And thank you, Alexandra. And we will speak later about all the actors of the ecosystem. But you both mentioned the importance of the education. So it is great that we have here the person from the educational system. So Marie, maybe conclusion about the role of the university. So the university that you are presenting, but in general also, why it's important to educate people about the social entrepreneurship, about the social impact, the business with impact, etc., and how the university is cooperating with the other actors.
I think it's extremely important, actually, from several different perspectives. first of all, of course, to raise awareness of the fact that we have this kind of social enterprises, that they actually could be something that people can do, that students actually could engage in. So from that perspective, from the just encouragement perspective, I think universities have a great role to acknowledge that we have social issues out there that we need to address, and that students could actually be part of that, part of the solution to those problems. And of course, in order to do that, we also need role models, as you were both talking about, that there need to be some acknowledgement for those who actually have done this, and that they are showcased in some way, because that is also how you build interest, and that you build awareness about this kind of companies and this kind of ventures. And of course, you also need research around these topics, because doing research, you get knowledge, and the knowledge need to be spread. And as you said, Alexandra, many actors are not really aware of the difficulties and the different things that are necessary to have in a social enterprise. And of course, then we need research to figure out what kind of knowledge do we actually need in order to be able to provide the actors in the ecosystem with the relevant knowledge that they can in turn spread to their the companies that or the activities that they perform. So I think in many different levels, the university have could be a key player actually, and as such also, of course, engaging in the ecosystem, both with the knowledge that they have, but also in sending students out there into the ecosystem. So serving as a highway into the ecosystem as well. And what was I thinking? Yeah, and of course, then there also needs to be some sort of initiatives taken by the universities and a will from the university side to address these matters, because they need to employ people that are interested in doing research and doing teaching in these areas. So we have, for instance, now a professor in social entrepreneurship, and that professor needs funding from somewhere. So there needs to be funding also to the universities, or at least a will from the universities to engage in these tasks, in these questions. And then that will spill over to the rest of the ecosystem in different ways, I would say. But also, I mean, this is both from top down and bottom up in a way. You can't build everything top down. You also need to build bottom up. And I think the universities also has a position to increase the engagement for the bottom up approach, because when you encourage students, for instance, to be aware of these things, there becomes a bottom up movement that also encourages the top-down approach, because then they feel that, okay, so this may be necessary, and then we have to do something and create funds or make calls or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. We need to work with the student, but of course with the professors and all the actors that are including in the whole process. So I think that is now part of the discussion where we can speak more about the key actors. So Stefan, you can continue.
Yeah, quite a interesting discussion, and we were talking about the actors and their roles, but for those who are listening to this webinar and who do not know, we are talking about the education and research institutions as one of the actors, but for those who do not know the actors in the social entrepreneurship ecosystem, Neven, could you tell us more about who are the actors? What are the key actors in the social entrepreneurship ecosystem? How to engage them? How to connect with them and communicate with them?
Well, I think definitely the answer to the last part of your question is like, differently with different actors, so there is not one size fits all, when it comes to communication. And also starting from also the end of your question, maybe I think the thing is to learn the language of because a lot of the things get lost in translation. At least this is my impression. You would have social enterprises, a lot of them coming from the civil society sector, a lot of them coming, spending their, life work on, supporting various, I don't know, vulnerable groups and working to build their communities. And then they need to translate what they're doing into the language business. So they need to learn how to speak to a bank, how to speak with an investor, how to speak, how to negotiate a deal with the distributor, And these guys, although they might think it's a very good thing that they do also some, nice community building and community development work, would need to, understand and would need things to be, told in their language. So I think a lot of them, a lot of that comes, and this is why the role of organizations such as yours and is very important, because you kind of, we act as some kind of intermediary, some kind of also translators, and some kind of, I would say, connection providers, within the ecosystem, which I think is very, very important, because I think, we need to establish, in each of our countries, and, not only one, but several access of points for social enterprise on one side, but for all the other actors on the other side. So what we have now is a situation is that, for example, we would have IKEA coming to us saying, listen, we would like to engage some social enterprises into our supply chain. Can you help us to, I don't know, find some social enterprise in these and these sectors, because this is what we would be interested in, or, we would have a financial institution coming in and saying, we are thinking about using European Commission funded easy guarantees to provide loans, favorable loans to businesses with impact. Can you help us? So I think, it goes both ways, so it's not only that, of course, primarily you serve the interests of social businesses, which come, in various forms, and they would come ask for advice, for ideas, for money, for connections. But at the end of the day, you serve the whole ecosystem. And it's not only accelerators, incubators, it's also, as Alexandra has been mentioning, it's also networks, it's also universities, because they also, to a certain extent, that act as catalysts. And I think, from there, things, go natural, because, once I know who to ask for something, then I would know to go to the university to get some knowledge that I need, or some research that is conducted there, or I would go to my network to ask, is anybody else has similar experience, or I would come to, I don't know, Smart Collective and help them to, fine tune my business plan so I can be eligible for funding from an investor or from a bank. So I think social entrepreneur, this is what I said at the beginning, and this is my thesis, needs to be much more connected and needs to put extra efforts into kind of this networking and learning circle, because, he or she, they need to, also use and utilize on these chances and opportunities that, because they, building their business is always balancing between the social mission and then the business development, and as they're having heavier tasks, they need to build a much stronger pool of supporters within the ecosystem.
Thank you, Neven. It's interesting that social entrepreneurs are double burdened by their nature, right? They have an economic and social purpose, social goals, and they also have to learn the languages of both private and public sector, but also with the other actors as well, so they can navigate through the system. With that in mind, I'm coming to Alexandra and want to ask her, how can social entrepreneurs navigate through the social enterprises or social entrepreneurship ecosystem in the current context in the Western Balkans or in North Macedonia for the moment?
Well, if I speak from the perspective of the social entrepreneur, then currently within this context and within this setup, social enterprises are not in a very, at least in not only North Macedonia, but in the Western Balkans, are not in the very favorable situation. Because from what we can see is that still in our context, it's a concept that is still it's emerging, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to help public, for example, public institutions to understand that concept and to really recognize that concept in their programs, in their strategies, and in their yearly budgets, at least. On the other hand, we as countries are not in the full position to fully use all the funds and that is available by the European Commission. And to use, for example, we have been networking and with various networks of social enterprises from Europe, and we were mostly trying to get to the question: how do you ensure your financial sustainability? And usually those are the funds that come from the European Social Fund that for Macedonia is still not opened. Then on the other hand, from what we can see from the inputs and things that we get constantly from social enterprises, is that they don't have any access to banks and to loans. It's difficult for the banks to understand what is this business doing and how sustainability can be ensured. We don't have the social finance instruments. And for example, even though the Fund for Innovation and Technology Development in their program, they recognize social entrepreneurship, this has to be then as a program further operationalized and made more available, because now it's only in the program. So they're kind of in the between. It's difficult for social enterprises to operate. And we have to be also realistic that the COVID-19 crisis, although it helped the stakeholders, especially politicians on EU level, to recognize and to provide stronger support for the sector. This support is not still happening in our countries, in our context. And on the other hand, COVID-19 put the social enterprises in front of new challenges. For example, how to digitalize. It's a concept that it's not really fully understandable and close to them. So that means that the ecosystem has to be very flexible, has to be very fast in providing a response to the needs of social enterprises, because now within only 1 year everything changed. The needs of the social enterprises changed entirely, and we need to be very flexible and very adaptive in order to help and to ensure that the social enterprises are moving forward and that they are delivering the entire potential that they can, at least in our societies.
Thank you, Alexandra. Now we have come to the what Neven said, you have to learn the languages of the actors, because when you're going to private investors as a social entrepreneur, you have to talk about the return of investment. When you're going to public officials or public funding, then you have to talk about the social mission, and so on and so forth. But at the end, nobody wants to invest just in a social mission. It has to have a business behind it and a sustainable solution. So that's the whole idea here. Marie, is it something, how is it in Sweden? Is it something different? Is it the same? Is it better or worse? How is it in Sweden, the ecosystem, and how social entrepreneurs navigate through this system?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think, as I said before, I think at least we as an institution, when we teach these things, we try to navigate students towards a sustainable business model. That is a business model which more or less becomes a hybrid organization. So it's a social organization that also makes a profit in the end. And I think that is what most people do, because I mean, if you are not a charity organization, then you do have to you have to pay your bills somehow. You have to pay your rent. You have to. I mean, you always have some sort of expenses that you need to pay, and in order to do so, you need to have an income. So and of course, these hybrid models, that could be that you are. We have well, I can give you an example. We have an organization called Rude Food, and they gather food that is from stores that they do not sell. So it has a very well, almost waste, but it's not waste, so it's still functional. They gather that food and they turn it into meals, and they give these meals to poor people. But they also make money because they have a cookbook that they sell. So they have designed a cookbook, they sell that. They also deliver catering to other people, so they sell catering efforts. But in the end of the day, so this becomes a hybrid organization. So they have found a way to make money in order to give poor people food, basically. So they have constructed a business model that works. So and I think that is the way for these kind of enterprises to work. They have to create an innovative business model that sort of serves both purposes in order to be sustainable in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Marie. It's interesting that because the starting point is build a sustainable business model or sustainable business that will provide you funding, and then do with them basically what you want and achieve your social mission, right? So have a sustainable business model is the conclusion here. Thank you for that. Snezhana?
Yeah, I think that we came to the part where we want to speak more about the networks that are operating in this field and why are these networks important. So Neven, maybe we can go to start with you. So you are the president of the Euclid network. So how these networks are operating and what the social entrepreneurs can have from that.
Well, I think, I have stressed sufficiently the importance for social enterprises from networking and from actually trying to be much more connected within their ecosystems. I will still briefly on Euclid Network, which is a network of intermediate organizations that support social enterprises or of social enterprise network operating in 27 European countries. And I think, why networks are important. I think there are many different networks, and I think, to a certain extent, of course, these networks are competitors, but only because they compete for the same limited, I would say, organizations and membership. But most of the times these networks are very complementary because they provide different knowledges, different angles of how they support their members. I think one of the key areas where you can support its members is one of them would be peer learning. So we are very much focused on actually kind of believing in the notion that there is tremendous knowledge out there already, which has been developed by our members from university, by our members from incubators, members from social enterprise networks, and that we need to act as a facilitator of the exchange of this knowledge, because why would you go and spend tremendous efforts of and time and money in developing, I don't know, program for support, or developing a financial mechanism, or developing, I don't know, a curriculum for a educational program where you can already learn and from experience of other parties. And the other, I think, most important part is translating, if you will, what our members' needs and challenges to the European Commission, because European Commission has a number of programs and strategies which are directed to support of social economy, but this is not always on the one hand heard by the social enterprises which are on the ground, and the European Commission does not necessarily always hears the voice of them. So what we do through our network of national partners and members, we ensure that in every process that the European Commission is engaged in developing support mechanisms, policies, or funding programs, we ensure that our members have a say, and through our members, the social enterprises and people working actually on the ground have their say about what needs to be done, what are the challenges, what are some of the key issues. And I think these two things are most valued, I would say, by our members. And yes, we're based in the Netherlands, in The Hague, but work throughout Europe. And if you see me as a president, I'm sitting not in a non-EU country, so it's we are kind of proud of the diversity of the network, and we'll be looking in further growing it.
Really a great message, and to hear the importance of the network, but also the way that you are connecting the Commission and the entrepreneurs itself. So, and Alexandra, so you are involved with the Social Enterprises Network in North Macedonia. So how this network is functioning and how it is supporting and helping social entrepreneurs to grow their business?
First, I like to add that networks are actually one of the key components of the ecosystem of social enterprise, because primarily they reflect the capacity of the social enterprises to self-organize and to become advocates for their own needs. So the social enterprise network in Macedonia, it's operating as a non-formal network, and we are primarily trying to be as an organization that initiated and that currently is coordinating the network. We try to be the voice of the social enterprises. And to be advocates for social enterprises on national level, and to advocate for better policies and better political recognition of social enterprises. But from recently, we also started to be the voice of social enterprises on EU level, and through our activities with the DISIS network, we are trying to really extend a little bit more the agenda of the European Commission when it comes to providing support to social enterprises on the Western Balkans. because from what we have seen from the social business initiative and the entire financial packages and activities that has been implemented with this initiative, as the impact evaluation of that initiative shows that the Western Balkans are a little bit behind with the development of the ecosystems. So that means that now with the new strategy and the action plan of the Commission, a different set of activities and measures should be, at least we expect, that should be foreseen to better address the needs and the gaps, the existing gaps of Western Balkans, and in order to enable their ecosystem to reach to the development of the ecosystem of other EU countries. Maybe this is yes, it's a lot to expect, but that's something that we are willing to achieve, and we hope to achieve through our activities that now that we try to implement on EU level. Moreover, on national level, we really try to keep informed social enterprises on new financial instruments, to keep them informed on events and capacity building programs that are of their interest. And also we try to encourage better cooperation and partnerships between them. Now through this year, with the activities that are foreseen in the companies doing a good forum, we are taking a little bit more regional perspective. And we will be more focused on building partnerships between social enterprises and the traditional business sector, and hopefully through the presentation of the good examples that come from IKEA and Decathlon, who will be speakers on the event, we will try to encourage these partnerships and a better cooperation. And as publishers of the street paper, Face to Face, we do a lot of work in promoting the social enterprises. We publish their stories, we promote them on our social media, through our street paper. So we really try to stay rooted deeply in the ecosystem and try to respond to the identified needs. And of course, we try to now in North Macedonia, there is an ongoing project for technical assistance for social enterprises, and through our activities, we in the different groups and within that project, we also try to advocate for in the better interest of social enterprises.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. It is really great to hear that you are having several initiatives that are helping and supporting the social entrepreneurs. So, Marie, we now heard about the networks that are operating in Serbia and North Macedonia, but also European networks that are involving Western Balkan countries. So maybe we can hear more from you about the networks that are existing in Sweden that are supporting social entrepreneurs. And also it will be good to hear the connection if you know maybe some connections between the Sweden and the Western Balkan countries in this field. Are there some kind of cooperation existing actually?
Unfortunately, I don't know. and unfortunately, I don't think so. Not at least on any regional levels. I don't think so. Maybe there are connections. I mean, if we look at the Swedish Institute and parties like that, there might be some connections and cooperations going on. Of course, the SIPE programs, young professional programs that are provided by the Swedish Institute. Could be some collaboration in that respect to capacity build young professionals from the Western Balkans in both in ecosystems and also in social matters. So that is of course one kind of collaboration that also creates a network from the alumni that has taken those courses in the end. Otherwise, networks for social entrepreneurs, I'm not sure that there are that kind of networks. It's more like networks for entrepreneurs or networks for enterprising people. People that are entrepreneurial, people that want to do things. There are a lot of networks for those, and most of them are or there are different kinds of networks. Some of them are self-created. I mean, they do a Facebook group and they get together and they have a lot of posts on the Facebook group, help each other out, and do things like that. And then there's also, if I speak from Lund University side, there's the Student Incubator Venture Lab, where people get together doing all kinds of businesses from social to high tech, basically. And they have a great alumni network there too, where people get together and give each other advice, connect to other people in their network. And they are located in the science park with all the support organizations surrounding them, from business advisors to business angels and Connect, which is a connecting organization, which connects entrepreneurs with venture capital or business angels. So there's a lot of support organizations located in the same place, also where the entrepreneurs are. So that is sort of a local network, which is very dense, because everyone knows anyone, and if you enter into that, you are immediately accepted as one of the community. I think that most of the networks that are in Sweden are built bottom up. I mean, they are self-generated in a way. And entrepreneurs, if there are students or others, they are in the community and they know each other, they help each other out, and so on and so forth.
Oh.
And yeah, I could add on that, because there are also some larger companies have actually started accelerator programs for social impact. There is one called Change Makers, for instance. It's an accelerator program built from a larger company. So they try to make that kind of that's a CSR activity, but they want to make a change, and they help out entrepreneurs that want to do that too. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. And yes, I think that Stefan and myself can agree about the importance of the site program, as we are both alumni of this Lund and Swedish Institute network. And I think that our project is a great way to present how important is this networking and the cooperation and what we can do between our countries in the Western Balkan, but also in the cooperation with the best practices from Sweden. So I think that it is great that you mentioned this maybe at the end of our conversation today. So it is really great.
Okay, guys, now we have come to the final minutes of the webinar, let's say, and we always close the webinars with one question for you all, basically, and that is the message for new and upcoming entrepreneurs. But before we come to that, we have received several messages, several questions from Facebook, and in the sense of time, in the respect of your time as well, I would just pick one and basically merge and combine it with our last question and with the message for new and upcoming entrepreneurs, let's say. So Elena asked, what are the first 3 steps that a social entrepreneur should do in these kinds of ecosystem? And that is the question from Elena. And if we can combine it, for example, what will be the first 3 steps for social entrepreneurs to do in these ecosystems, and to close it with your message for new and upcoming social entrepreneurs? Marie, can we start with you?
I was hoping I was being that I could think a bit, but okay. The first 3 that is really hard, because that depends on what kind of idea that you have. But I would say talk to people. That would be one first step to take. Go out there and talk to people and see if it is possible to do what you are thinking about doing. Is there really a need out there, and how could you make this happen? So go out there and talk to people and listen. That would be my advice. And then I think if you are unsure about your idea, if you're unsure of if I'm going to do this or not, give it a try. Just try. And that would be my advice to any entrepreneur, basically. Give it 3 months of your life. If you don't, you will regret it. So start out 3 months, see if it happens. If it does not happen, you can always try to get a job somewhere. If it does fly, you can move on to another three months and see what happens. And then you can move on like that. So don't think of this as a huge project that you need to spend your lifetime doing. Think about it in 3 months and then move along in that direction. And my third thing would be to recommend you to actually do things. Don't think. Well, you have to think, of course, but don't analyze so that you get paralyzed by your analysis. You have to do things, and then you analyze things as you go along. So that would be my three things. I think it was 3.
Yeah, it were 3. Thank you. It was a great message as well. So thank you for that. I think that this would be very helpful for the new and upcoming social entrepreneurs. Alexandra, can you go second?
Yes, well, I think that, along with what Marie told us, I think my suggestion would be that not everyone can be a social entrepreneur. And my first step would be that in order to be a social entrepreneur, you have to have a lot of values as a person. You have to believe in the change you are willing to do. If you don't have this as a value, then it's almost, at least from my perspective, it's impossible to be a social entrepreneur. And being a social entrepreneur, many times it means a journey with a lot of sweet challenges, but at the very end there is nothing better than the feeling when you see that you help somebody to improve their quality of life. When you see a former homeless person now living a decent and independent life, or a person with a disability that has been completely excluded from the society now is actively involved in the open labor market, or when you see that the waste from clothing has been considerably reduced after 1 year. Without believing in what you're doing, nothing. You cannot be a social entrepreneur. It's a different set of mind that you need to nurture.
Thank you, Alexandra. Wow, so believe in yourself, believe in your idea, and nurture your values, right? And practice them. And Neven?
Yeah.
What would your choice be?
I'm glad I was going last. I was afraid that because you wouldn't call me up to go first with this tough question. I think recently I found a note, like a book from a few years ago, the power of unreasonable people, and it's about social entrepreneurs. And basically, it says that it's based on the quote by Bernard Shaw, where he says that reasonable people adapt themselves to the world, and unreasonable people try to adapt the world to themselves, and thus whole progress lies on unreasonable people. So I think the message to social entrepreneurs is would be to be unreasonable to a large extent, and to try not to go with the status quo, but to try to actually change things. And where everybody sees a problem, they actually see a business opportunity, which is unreasonable by itself. Second thing would be, what Maria and Alexandra said, like to talk, and to test their idea, to talk to as many people as possible, because you never know, which part of your network that you have built informally will actually help the start of your business. The third one would be to believe in your idea, but know that although you might be the smartest people in the room, not necessarily your idea is bulletproof and the best there is. So try to get all the constructive critique that you have, and try to improve your idea based on that, not to fight as hard as possible to. And finally, try not necessarily, you will build your idea at this very specific moment. So I think social entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs because of the set of skills they have and because of the values, as everybody said. So what we see a lot is that, maybe sometimes the time is not right for the idea, but if you stick with these values and you do something else and you build your kind of personal set of skills, maybe 2 years from now it will be the right time to start your idea. So being entrepreneurial does not necessarily mean being an entrepreneur all the time. It actually means having the spirit of being entrepreneurial. So build your network, build your skills, and listen to people, but still stay unreasonable. That would be my advice.
Yes, I think that from this is the fourth webinar that we're doing, and from all 4 webinars we have discussed that you have to be unreasonable, you have to be considered crazy, and many other attributes, let's say, in order to succeed as a social entrepreneur. And because you mentioned George Bernard Shaw, I would just finish this webinar with his quote, because progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So I live by this by this quote, basically, because I believe in it strongly. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I hope that we will collaborate again sooner rather than later. Please be available for discussions and events like this, because in COVID time, this is all we can do right at this point until it finishes. So yeah, Snezhana, can you add something?
No, just also to thank you all for your time, and it was really great discussion, and I'm so glad that we made such important topics and messages to all the people who are listening to us. And at the end, to thanks to everyone who was listening here in Zoom or also Facebook pages, and follow us. We will be every Thursday at 5 speaking about the importance of social entrepreneurship and to share the good practices from the whole, not just region, the whole Europe. So looking forward for the next initiative and the next joint activities.
Thank you guys again from us.
Thanks for the invitation, and take care. Thank you.
Ciao.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.